Today, we are talking to women who were all told they were orphans. They were all adopted when they were babies. What they didn't know was that they may have been sold illegally on the black market. Most of these women are grateful to their adoptive parents. But one of our guests in this segment doesn't feel that way, and that's Lori. You don't feel grateful to your parents, your adoptive parents.
It's not that I don't per se feel grateful. It's that I do know that my mother was unable to adopt because she was later deemed paranoid schizophrenic, and therefore she was unable to go through the regular adoption routines. So she had to go out of the country in order to adopt.
So what happened was she couldn't adopt in a legal way in this country.
That's correct.
She wanted a child.
That is correct. My father wanted a child desperately.
So where'd they go?
They went to Greece. They went to Greece, and here in America, the woman that was brokering the families was Rebecca Ishikar, and there in Greece, the lawyer was Maury Ishikar, and they connected up with my parents here in America, and they paid $3,000 for me in 1958.
And I mean, there are accusations that it was a black market operation.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've heard, too. It's hard to prove it. I mean, technically, the adoptions are legal from the standpoint of all the paperwork and all of that. That's all legal.
So now why do you hear years later? First of all, you didn't know that you were adopted until you were 11.
That's correct.
What was your reaction then?
I was in shock. My aunt told me, not my father. And then I had to take care of my father because my father was so upset in finding out that I knew that I was adopted because he never wanted to tell me.
Your mother had died?
No, my mother was still alive, but my mother was in and out of hospitals at that point. So I was very bonded with my father. The only thing is that he never wanted me to know. And I had to take care of him emotionally. I never had a chance to process my own feelings.
When did you begin to give a thought to it?
About four and a half years ago, when a friend of mine named Peter, he owns the gas station across from my house, he's from the same town that I am, Patra, and he asked me for my papers, and he said, let me take these back and see what I can do.
What kind of papers did you have?
I have all the legal adoption papers and my passport photo. Basically everything legal that I have. Other than that, nothing.
Your father kept all that?
My father kept all of that, and he gave it to me when I was a little bit older.
And so, by the way, the lawyers in this case, they pleaded innocent, and they've been found innocent.
Right. They were indicted, and then they were found innocent. Okay. Correct.
So now, did you have this burning desire to go back and find your relatives?
Well, when Peter took my papers back, they put articles in the newspaper in Greece about me. And then he came back about a year later, and I completely forgot that he had my papers at this point. Because in the beginning, I was like, every day thinking, oh my God, you know, maybe I'm going to find something. And then I kind of like, time goes on, and you have to go on with your life.
But it's not like, I mean, we do adoption shows here all the time, and we reunite people. I mean, it's not like, you know, you're living in California, you have relatives in South Carolina. This is Greece.
Well, that was I couldn't just hop on a Greyhound bus and go home, you know, and take a look. So he put these articles in the paper and came back to me and said, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's a big scandal. I think you might have been stolen. I want to help you. He tried. Doors were slammed in his face, every which way but loose. And then I went on a local TV news show, and from there, International Social Services contacted me, and they tried a number of times to help me locate my family, and nothing happened. And finally, the third person, Andrea Minster, called me. And by the time she called me, I was already kind of like ticked off because it's like an open wound. Yes, we're going to help you. Sign these papers, give us this, give us that. I do all that, and nothing happened. And then in December, I got a phone call. We found your family. December of this past year. And I started shaking and crying and freaking out, and it was wonderful. And then I went home for 1 month.
You went back to Greece.
December 23rd, I arrived December 24th.
Did you find your mother?
Found my mother, 4 brothers, and a sister.
Now, let me ask you.
Yes, it's wonderful.
It's terrific. But how do you know it's your mother?
Well, the story goes like this. I was left on the doorsteps of my grandfather's house by my mother because there was lots of problems in the family. My grandfather could not afford to keep me because he had 15 people living in like in a 1.5 room place, so he put me temporarily away. But he couldn't put me under his name because he would have been arrested. It was like that back then. Times were very hard back in Greece at that time. So he put me in temporarily. I was a real cute baby. I mean, I have to say I was. And right away was adopted and in and out really quickly.
But this so-called orphanage is kind of a bond among many of our guests today.
Yes, absolutely.
Because while Lori was searching, she met Maxine, who was also born in Greece. Now, did you know that or not as you were growing up, Maxine?
Yes, I was told that as a child. It was my bedtime story. I came here at 16 months old, and my mother had told me that that was my bedtime story till I was done with bedtime stories. How she got me, how they prepared to get me, and they picked out a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. Out of a book. And I have that picture.
Were you that blonde girl with blue eyes?
Yes, sir.
What happened to that blonde hair?
I have no clue.
She grew some too. She grew some too.
Now, does Lori get in touch with you?
Lori and I were friends in the past.
We were friends before all of this. We're friends for 16 years.
Lori and I met at
Wow!
What are the odds? Can you just tell me, what are the odds?
Two girls adopted, find out they're only adopted from Greece, but from the same place and the same
orphanage
circumstances?
Yes.
Similar, yeah. What's the odds of that?
I was too young. I was given my papers when I was 16 years old by my father. And he said, take these, you're going to need them someday. And of course I would. They're my naturalization papers and things to get out of the country.
The difference is you haven't found your birth parents.
I have not.
And how does that play on you?
It hurts. It's a feeling of emptiness, and I need to put closure to it.
And now, how do you do that? I mean, do you go back and search again? Do you continue
I've gone back
all this?
twice already.
And how far can you get? I mean, have you been disappointed? Do you think you found them, but you didn't? I mean, or you
I got
just
to the
haven't
orphanage, and they gave me a note supposedly written by my mother that said her birthday is August 1st, 1955. Please feed her, Alicia will die. I always thought my birthday was August 15th. Happens to be that August 15th in Greece, they celebrate name days. And my name was Maria Ioannou. So Maria is August 15th, name day. So I think that's, everybody had different birthdays, as they did find.
But
eventually.
you've been back twice.
Yes, I have.
You never came close?
No.
Never found a relative?
Nothing.
Nobody ever knew about your mother?
No.
No trace of her? You have no idea whether she's alive or not? And you have no idea about what that note meant?
No. All I know is somebody tried to interpret it, and they said it was written by a grammar school person. Like the grammar wasn't right.
Somebody who had not had a full education.
Correct. Like maybe a 16, 17-year-old person. So maybe she was young. Maybe it was written for her, or maybe it was phony. My belief, everybody had a note. It was like, drop baby here, leave note there. You know.
Lori's story, Maxine's story, part of a big media story here in this country. I mean, not only the New York Times and People magazine, but television as well. And then all of a sudden, Janie, you hear about these two. And what do you begin to establish
How did
for
I hear it?
yourself?
I heard it, we live in South Jersey, and my cousin was watching one of the New York station, Channel 11, and she saw something about adoptions and maybe something not being quite right, and she heard the lawyer's name mentioned, and it rang a bell with her, so she called my husband up and told my husband, I think you better tell Janie about, you know, I think something's wrong, you know. So that was November of 1995. I'm like saying, oh, I'm never gonna find these people, you know.
Let's find out right now. Where were you in this situation? You had known you were adopted?
I knew I was adopted since I was about 3, since the time I came over here.
Right. You knew that you came from Greece or not?
Yes, I knew I came from Greece. As far as I was concerned, I thought my mother gave me up. Or actually, I was told she died. I was told that she had died.
So you never thought about your mother as you grew up? Because
Oh, I did.
Oh, you did?
I always thought about her. Because, you know, you grow up in a family that people are like 6 feet tall or 5'8", and there I am, 5'2½", a little shrimpy, you know, and I don't look like anybody. And you're always saying, you know, well, how come you look like this and I look like that? I don't look this, you know. So I always had that need and that desire to want to know who my birth mother was.
Did you go back to Greece?
I went back 2 years ago.
Okay. We'll stop right there. We'll find out what you found. And we'll also meet a woman who was told as a child that her birth mother had died. 40 years later, she finds out her mother is alive. And we'll meet a woman who met another adoptee and thinks they may be related because they look alike, sound alike, and even act alike. Are they related? We'll hear their stories next. Well, these are amazing stories about Americans who find out not only are they adopted, not only weren't they orphans, but everybody came from the same little town in Greece. And we've heard the story of Lori and Maxine's connection to an orphanage in Greece, and now we've been talking to Janie. And to add to the mix, strangely enough, all of you were born in Greece, but all of you were adopted by Jewish parents here in this country. So you were born in Greece, and you grew up Jewish in America. Wow. Now, let's finish your story, Janie. You go back 2 years ago.
I went back 2 years ago.
And what do you find?
I found this little lady.
This little lady?
She came up to here on me. She's tiny, so now I know where I got my height from.
But wait a second, how do you know that's your mom?
Well, she sent me a picture of herself. And right away, my family and I were all like, you know, looking at this picture and saying, do you think I look like her? And my mother-in-law says, I see your daughter. I see Jillian in her. And sure enough, my middle daughter resembles my birth mother.
There's Jillian right there. Let's take a look at Jillian. There she is.
And we get to the airport. It's all chaos.
What did your birth mom think?
At first, and I think she put her arms out, like you know, like this. And she had tears in her eyes. I was like teary-eyed, but like she was really a stranger to me, you know. I didn't know her.
Did you hug her?
Oh, yeah. I had
Did you hug your mom, Lori?
Oh, yeah. And my brothers and my sister, very much so. I feel extremely connected to my family in Greece.
Okay. Now, all of a sudden, you think that's the end of the story? Oh, no, that's not the end of the story. There's Ellen. Ellen feels connected to these women because you read about what was happening, because it was now being published all over the country. And what do you think, Ellen?
I was quite amazed. I had a friend call me and also
You knew you were adopted?
Knew from the minute I was born.
You knew you were from Greece?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Grew up in a Jewish household?
Yeah, in a very good one, thank you, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very positive. My parents were very open and honest about the whole situation, and I'm grateful for that.
And also, Janie's father and your adoptive father and Janie's adoptive father.
Friends since they were about 10 years old.
In this country?
In this country.
Go figure.
They wanted, after my parents adopted me, her parents called up and said, why didn't you tell me? Right. And my mother said, because you were so against it. I didn't want to, you know, I kept telling you, do it already, like that type of thing. And she goes, okay, can you help me? So that's how Ellen came.
Now, Ellen, did you go back and search?
No, I have not. I am planning to go back this summer.
Do you have any idea where your relatives might be?
No, none.
Do you have enough papers, you think, that would give you clues that Maxine, unfortunately, has not been able to establish?
I have about as much paperwork. They all seem very similar. Now that we've met each other and compared the paperwork, they all seem very similar in nature. Same sort of note that was left on all of us. Right. Same letters, form letters from the lawyers. So I think the group of paperwork seems to be very much similar.
Now, Andrea, were you told as a youngster that you came from Greece?
Yes, I was.
And what were you told about your mother?
Well, when I was around 10 years old, my adoptive family had told me that my mother and father had died, that I was in an orphanage in Athens, and that they had gone to a woman named Rebecca Issachar, who had an agency in New York, and they picked me out of a picture book, very similar to what Max had said. And, about maybe 10, 11 years later, after my adopted mother passed away, I had got all my records from my father. And in there was a name of a mother, a name, and I wasn't sure who that was. And I decided that maybe one day I would search to see if there was if my birth mother was alive or if that was a false name. But then unfortunately, my brother passed away, my adopted brother passed away. And I said, you know what, I'm going to leave well enough alone. and decided that I wasn't going to search. And then maybe one day as an adult, I would go to Greece and see what my culture was like. And then...
You were raised Jewish too?
Yes, I was. And I was bar mitzvahed.
I don't know why. It's just strange to me.
Well, this last trip that I went on in July, I met my godmother, who hasn't seen me since I was 6 months old.
How did she know that you were her goddaughter?
Well, I had met my birth mother.
Oh, you did meet your birth?
Yes.
And how did you know she was your birth? See, I ask these questions. I'm not that
very
I'm skeptical. It's just looking for a needle in a haystack, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's like you got a whole country to pick from.
Well, we had help.
Well, we had help. I mean, there was an associate. I wound up reading, actually a friend of mine told me about the article in the New York Times and said, you've got to read the Times today, your life's going to change forever. I said, what are you talking about? I get the New York Times. And in the Times, it discusses the illegal adoptions. So I said, you know, wouldn't that be wild that after all these years of me not really wanting to search, that there's a woman out there that's looking for me? So I called the New York Times and eventually got to Max. And Maxine's first question was, were you a Issachar or Scopus baby?
That's what you asked me too.
I said, all
Why?
right.
Because those were the two
Yeah,
brokers who were
yes.
working in
Pretty
this
much
country?
the
So I said, well, I have to tell you, I haven't looked at my paperwork in a while. I think I was an Issachar baby. She said, 99% you're stolen. I said, okay. So I wound up meeting with a number of people, Janie,
We
Lori,
started a support group.
Yes.
and we all got together, and I was fairly convinced that I might be one of those children because of some of the New York Times articles.
Okay. Does it make a difference to you? Does it have an impact on any of you with the word, quote, stolen, unquote, than just adopted? Or, I mean, does that make it different for you? Does that mean you've been cheated somehow? Does it mean anything like that or not?
I believe that the word stolen, the closest we've gotten to stolen was Andrea and Lori.
Me too.
You too?
Sure.
Okay.
I was talking.
Now, but these are allegations that have never been proved.
It's,
Oh,
it's
yes.
a weird place to be. Here I've lived in this country all my life, and I have my family here. I have my brother, my nephew, and I love them very much. But when I went home, that's when I began to feel the part of being cheated. And it's a dichotomy because I have that and I have this, and I live between the two. And so does it really matter in the big sense? No, there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, what
When
does
we
matter-
come back, we are going to meet another adoptee who knew nothing about the scandal surrounding these adoptions until she received a phone call last week from a sister she never knew existed. They are going to be united for the first time on this show after this. Clean my glasses here. Now, we're talking to grown women who were all adopted as children. They recently found out that the adoption years ago may have been illegal. And before we move on, we've got to show Rachel and Melissa, who are Janie's other daughters, because we showed Jillian before. So will you stand up, kids, right now? We'll get this out of the way. One more. Okay. Now, if you think that these stories are strange, you don't know anything yet. Listen, Lori started searching for her birth mother about 2 years ago. Finally, 2 months ago, she met her birth mother in Greece. While there, Lori found out she had a sister who was adopted from the same orphanage. Her sister was also adopted in this country.
Yes.
So what did you do?
When I found this out, I think I had a minor stroke because I had thought it was over. But for me, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. We came home from Greece after all of this had happened, and Maxine had gone through the internet, and we compiled these lists of names of Herman and Rita, and I called hundreds of names.
In other words, they had also, this couple had also adopted someone, is that right?
The parents of my sister, who by the name that I knew in Greece is Kostula. But of course, I don't know her name because I don't know what it's been changed to.
Right.
But I do know Herman and Rita. I find one, Herman and Rita. I was dialing this number, no one answered. No one answered, no one answered. Every day since January when I came home. And finally on Tuesday, someone picked up the phone, and I almost wanted to hang up. I was so nervous. I was shaking, you know, and it turned out that, yes, this is Costula.
Did you tell her on the phone?
I tried to be gentle. I mean, I said, hello, is Herman there? She said, who is this? And I said, my name's Laurie Weinstein, and I'm calling from New York. And I said, well, you know, I really want to speak to their daughter. Who's this? You know? And I said, well, are you from Greece? How do you know that? You know?